What's up, everybody? I'm Corey, and this week's review is over Batbarian, Testament of the Primordials. This is developed by Unspeakable Pixel and published by Danjin Entertainment. Came out for Xbox One on July 15th, 2021. It's been out on Switch and PC, but now it's out on Xbox, so let's check it out. So Batbarian is a Metroidvania action-adventure game. You are exploring this cave, coming across foes and bosses, trying to find your way out. But what makes Batbarian different than any other 2D platforming adventure game like this? Well, the first thing that stands out to me is the ambience of the game. As you can see, we are traversing a cave, and like a cave would be, it's very dark. We do not see a lot of the screen as we go through these different cave rooms and puzzles. Of course, we have this glowing bat. As you play the game, you'll get to know this bat. He's your friend, he's there to help you, and you can control him in various ways, and he provides this light for you to see. That is one thing that makes this game stand out. Another thing is the humor. There is some text in the game that you have to go through, and you can select different text options. It's very humorous, and the options actually have somewhat of an effect on what the NPCs will say and do. So it's actually worth another playthrough, so there's some replayability to it. But it's just a funny story that they kind of throw into a serious atmosphere. And then lastly, something that not a lot of other platformers like this game would do is a leveling up system. As you level up, which you primarily do by exploring and finding secrets rather than fighting enemies, whenever you level up, a slot machine style spin wheel comes up, and it's very easy to pick what you want, but you get 3 outcomes, and you get to pick 3 different times. And the different outcomes that could pop up are pluses to your awareness, which makes the room a little bit easier to see. It increases your awareness, your strength, so you hit harder, or your shield is your defense, where you can take a little bit more hits. And so combine all of those 3 things into this exploration game where you are trying to figure out these, for the most part, one-room puzzles to get through, and you've got a pretty good game on your hands, if you ask me. Now, to kind of take it a step back and break it down, we can see that there are enemies in our way, and the combat is pretty simple. We can slash our sword and deal with them in most cases. Now, the bat, our friend here, will come into play a little bit later into the game, but certainly can help you early on as well. As you progress the story, well, the bat doesn't just stay the same way the entire time. He becomes elemental. So not only will he be a help in determining how you figure out some of the puzzles later on, there are certain enemies that will be weak to some of those elements, so you have to combine that whenever you're dealing with them. So I did say that this is a Metroidvania game. You have this map on screen that that helps you traverse, and it does a really cool thing that I wish more Metroidvanias, if not all of them, would add, and that's the ability to add markers. There are a ton of little icons that I can choose to put on any tile that I want. And this is very helpful when maybe you find a chest on screen but you can't figure out how to get to it. I'll just put a little chest icon in that corner there. Or if this was a boss room, I can put a skull to jog my memory that was a boss room. Maybe it'll help me kind of remember what was around that area. A lot of different things. I used it a lot for when I thought I got everything in the room. I would put a check mark down and that room was done. So very cool mapping system that I really appreciated. I mentioned the bat. So the bat does have some elements that you'll get throughout the story. So you're able to control him with these different fruits. Some will just send him a certain way. Some will keep him in an area for a very short amount of time. And then some will actually kind of tell him to attack an enemy. And so all of those things are very helpful and necessary to get through some of these puzzles. You also have rocks that you can throw. It has nothing to do with the bat, but it allows you to interact with levers and maybe even a switch that you can't reach. So you always have to keep that in mind as well. You also have inventory on those. So at least for most of those things. The fruits are infinite. Everything else, you do have to manage how much you use, so there is some strategy to it as well. Now, the combat for the basic enemies, nothing to it. You swing your sword a few times and you can deal with them. The bosses, however, provide a little bit more of a challenge. Now, when it comes to the bosses, that is where probably my biggest criticism comes from. They were actually not that difficult. Maybe you would die a few times, learn their patterns, and be fine. But at some point in this game, the difficulty of the bosses in particular, it just shoots up and it stays there. So there is definitely a skill cap that you may or may not be able to meet at some point in this game. But that should not be a deterrent to the game, because the developers have added an assist menu, and it's a very well thought out assist menu. I'll show it here on screen, and you can see it has a ton of stuff. We can actually increase that ambient lighting, so if you're actually having trouble navigating in the dark and even leveling up is still not doing it enough for you, throw that toggle on and now you can see pretty much the whole screen at one time. Or if you just aren't strong enough, or you just can't do enough damage in time, flick those two switches and now your strength and your defense go up. Or this one happens to be one of the most useful ones in my mind. Whenever we get to those very hard bosses, closer to the end of the game, you can actually choose the toggle to slow down time whenever you're aiming. Now, why is this important? Well, you're going to be aiming and throwing all of the things that you're carrying to have your bat help you in these boss battles for various reasons, no spoilers. But at some point, you're getting a lot of stuff thrown at you, and the ability to have slow motion to dodge and dip through those things is a lifesaver. Helped me tremendously, and I did feel like I should turn them on at one point, and so I did use those. Other than that, like I said, the story is pretty humorous. There's actually 3 endings to the game, so you can choose to do different things. Again, no spoilers in order to achieve those endings. And it also, again, adds replayability to the game if you want to see different outcomes, different story beats. Luckily, with the endings, as the developers kind of said, you don't have to play the whole game to get the ending again to see a different one. So once you beat one, you can load up your save and jump back in and see how another one turns out, depending on your actions. So another really good kind of quality of life thing I like to see in these games, where you can experience the different outcomes without having to replay the entire game again. I spent maybe 12-ish hours, give or take, to get through to one of the endings, the bad ending, in this case, the one that's a little bit shorter to hit, just by a tiny bit. But along the way, I collected over half of the collectibles. So there are a ton of collectibles, hundreds of collectibles throughout these rooms, and that comes in the forms of chests that give you different gems or stones to trade to get other things. It has money in it. There is a shopping system where you could buy different pieces for your inventory and things like that. There's no crafting in this game, so that's another plus for me. Just a really solid Metroidvania in my mind, and it does this unique thing with the light and darkness that I really like to see. And then just how your combat is so basic, and you have to use this pet bat that is elemental with you. It just puts a different spin on it, and I really enjoyed it. That said, I'm going to write my scores up. They're going to be on xboxtavern.com, so go over there and check those out, as well as our other fabulous reviews that we put up all the time. As for me, I will see you in the next review.